While I was in college, I started tending bar. I fell in love with the environment, the energy, the people, the friends that we made, going out to breakfast after shifts. The whole thing, it became very important to me. I was a musician at the time. Wound up in Los Angeles, and I was working in Los Angeles. I was trying to make it as a musician. Through a friend, I was offered a job at the Troubadour, which is a very, very famous venue.
I think the Doors used to play there back in the day.
They did. Lenny Bruce was arrested in 1963 for saying "mother blank." I won't say.
Yes, yes.
But and very rich history. Elton John was found
for sure.
there,
Right.
The Ron settled. And I took a job there, and in a short period of time, I developed a nice relationship with the owner. One day, he threw the keys at me and says, "You can have it." And I was manager of the Troubadour.
Okay.
And from manager of the Troubadour, I was there for quite a while. Then I went from the Troubadour. I was moved to the East Coast, and through a headhunter, I was given a position in Florida for a company then called Beefsteak Charlie's. As a state manager in Florida, we had the 71-item salad bar, which was a bitch. I mean, to put out that huge salad bar, in addition to seafoods and everything else we saw.
Yeah, the all-you-can-eat shrimp, I remember, right?
That's right. You remember
throwing
well,
the peels
Roger.
on the floor. That takes me back to college, John. So keep going. This is fascinating.
Yep. And by the way, college kids during spring break, forget about it. You guys would bury us at shrimp consumption. Anyway.
Oh, yeah.
So from there, I did well, and I was approached by a headhunter who asked me to interview at a property in upstate New York called Grossingers, which was then one of the largest resort properties in the world, a very famous 1,200-acre, 3 9-hole golf courses, our own ski mountain with lifts, the first snowmaking equipment ever in America, a lake, of course, and about, at the time, 1,700 rooms, and about $1 million a month in food and beverage. This is around 1976.
I remember this well, John. My family, believe it or not, when I was younger growing up, we'd always go to the Catskills, and we went to a competing resort called the Concord.
Of course.
And that was a famous hotel. And and all these places had the live entertainment with the, the Hollywood stars and the Las Vegas acts and all that kind of stuff. And the food was over the top, and the golf courses and all this you mentioned. And this is my childhood. We did go to Grossingers once, so I remember that. And I believe they even had a branded rye bread that you used to buy in the supermarket.
We did, a Grossingers rye.
Yeah, exactly.
But these were huge properties. They were American plan hotels, Roger, right? So everything there were no cash registers anywhere in the property.
Right.
Everything was included.
My parents loved it.
And we had daytime activities, nighttime activities. So running Grossingers as a food and beverage director, I had the golf club, the food and beverage related facilities connected to the golf courses and golf clubs. I had the convention center, all the food and beverage connected to convention center, from setting up events to the food and beverage and the planning, all the operations of convention activities. Then I had the restaurants. Then I had room service. So it was quite a responsibility for a young guy. I was in my late 20s at the time.
Oh, absolutely. Wow.
Boy, I learned a lot there, Roger. From there, I was recruited by another headhunter after I was there for a few years. I went to work for a company that created Pulsations nightclub out of Philadelphia, which we believe is the greatest nightclub in the world. Spaceship flew into the room, deposited a $400,000 robot on the dance floor, and people can Google. There are pages on Pulsations online and such. World famous. We opened Pulsations. I'll never forget, Roger, in 1981, when I opened Pulsations, we did 83, forgive me, we did $647,000 our first week open.
Unbelievable.
Which was real money.
Oh my God.
Real
money.
money.
Even in today's money, you talk about a venue hitting that, and we're talking about, some larger venues today, but in those, in today's money, that is absolutely huge. And back then, this is fascinating.
And at Pulsations, I was approached by another headhunter. There was a lot of articles about me at Pulsations, and there were some articles about me at Grossingers. So I was developing a pretty good name for myself.
Reputation,
And I had a good back pocket of experience, from nightclubs to resort properties to huge mega nightclubs. So I really had a nice portfolio of experience. And then I was retained by a hotel company out of Chicago at the time called P&S Management, had 28 hotels, Holiday Inn, Sheraton, Marriott, franchises like that. I came on as general manager of that property, and I realized something. I realized that there's nobody in our business that has expense problems, not one. All we ever have are revenue problems. You see, when revenues go up 30%, we have no expense problems. Suddenly the rent numbers work. Suddenly our marketing expense numbers work. Suddenly our gratis numbers work. Suddenly we're not fighting for payroll anymore with that 30% revenue increase. I learned at a very young age to focus on the dollars of revenue aggressively, master revenue, and that revenue would be the cure-all for any problem I had later in the industry. I really embraced that, Roger. So at the hotel they put me at, in about 6 months, I raised revenue by over 30%, property-wide. They gave me a bigger hotel. I raised revenue again. They gave me a bigger hotel. I raised revenue again. They promoted me 11 times in 5 years. I left that company making 3 times the money as an employee than when I started with it. I then started my own company. This is around 1986. Started my own company based in Chicago to develop profitable food and beverage operations. At the time, food and beverage in hotels were traditionally more amenities at that point, not profit centers. And my mission in life was to teach a hotelier how to make money in food and beverage, not have it be a bleeding guest amenity. So I started my own consulting company. My first client was the hotel company that I left to create my consulting company. So all very coordinated. And I started with a client base. And then since then, I've done pretty much every major hotel chain you could imagine. We've opened, developed, designed hotels from Hong Kong, Singapore, Bangkok, all over the world for brands like Hyatt and Marriott over the years, even Ritz-Carlton over the years, and had massive experience. And what was interesting in the hotel business is when we did consulting in the hotel industry, nobody called us to say, if it wasn't a new hotel, Roger, nobody called us to say, John, I'm doing great. Go in and look at the property. It always was, John, I'm doing terrible. Go in and look at the property. So I never walked into good situations. I always walked into bad situations. Never did a company ever say to me, John, you got all the money you want. So they all invariably said to me, John, I need you to go in and fix it. And by the way, John, we have no money. So you got to figure out a way to fix this for very, very little dollars. So we created a lot of fun things. For example, positive picketing was one of my favorite. We would go to a property like a Dunkin' Donuts, for example, who was a client of ours years ago. And we'd say, okay, we're going to picket in front of this restaurant for 7 consecutive days. But the picket signs say, donuts too fresh, coffee too delicious.
What a hook that
Prices unfair to competition, service too fast, prices too good, restrooms too clean. And we would picket in front of the restaurant, premise being the more visible we are, the more potential we have, and the more opportunity we have to convert that into revenue.
Did media pick up on that, John?
In markets, yes.
Yeah,
in markets,
TV stations. It's like, this is something unusual. It's different.
Yeah.
But
if we did intercept studies before that, we'd see that maybe 2 out of 10 people knew the property was there. After a program like that, 8 out of 10 knew the property was there. So that increased identifiability. And we learned quickly in those years that first I get your eyes, then I get your body, then I get your wallet. I don't get your wallet until I get your eyes and your body. So let's start in the beginning, and that's your eyes. So we always looked at that as the premise in the way we would approach the industry. And then from there, we just became a hugely successful consulting company working globally, mega projects, clients like the huge, I'm not allowed to mention names, but huge theme park companies, developing evening entertainment destinations for them, huge multi-venue properties like Mall of America, doing tenant mix work, layout works, making sure that we don't have cross cannibalization of venues and concepts that we put in the same multiple use properties. We got very sophisticated in the understanding of multi-venue development and a demographic and psychographic placement of each one, and gridding out patterns and spends, making sure that we went to a property that we didn't cannibalize check, that we raised check, but we raised experience, and all those kinds of things. One day I'm giving a speech in Las Vegas, which I'm sitting right now. I live here. Somebody comes up to me and says, you should be on TV. So I go back to my offices and I think about it. I say, okay, Gordon Ramsay's got Kitchen Nightmares. She's like really successful. Okay. So I write something up called On the Rocks.
Good name.
And it's a cross between Kitchen Nightmares and Mission
Mm-hmm.
Impossible.
Yeah.
So they would drop me in a restaurant, Roger, and I would have files of mixologists and chefs, and I would pull out my team like the beginning of Mission Impossible, and then I would help the restaurant. I had been a consultant to Paramount years earlier for Bubba Gump Shrimp Company. So that license and rolling that out, which is a story unto itself, which was when Rusty Pelican went bankrupt, they converted to Bubba Gump and it saved the company. But in any event, we worked for Paramount then, so I had relationships. So I called my buddies at Paramount. I said, listen, I'm trying to work on this thing. Can you get me a meeting with some of the TV guys? I want to see if I should even waste my time on this or not. Courtesy meeting. They got me a meeting with the TV team at Paramount. I drive through the big gates, Roger. I'm in a movie studio. I go into the boardroom. All the TV guys are sitting there like this, and it's a courtesy. They're going to listen to what I say. And I said to them in the beginning, guys, Just tell me if this is worth my time or if I'm crazy. So I tell them my idea, and they look at me, and I won't use the language they use, Roger, out of respect for our audience. They looked at me and they said, John, you will never freaking be on television. You're too old. You're not good looking enough. It'll never happen. So I leave, a little bummed out, of course, get in the car, drive through the big Paramount gates. And I said to myself, I'm going to make my own sizzle reel. Only I can say no to me. I produced a 4-minute sizzle reel in a friend's bar in Hermosa Beach. It was empty on Saturday afternoon, full on Sunday afternoon for football. I sent it to 4 production companies I had absolutely no relationship with. Got 4 out of 4 offers.
Not surprised. You are not someone that we believe takes no for an answer, no matter what the situation. Absolutely. This is great.
So I learned then that I wasn't going to go for the best offer. I wanted the best company. So I signed with a company called 3Ball, who then had The Biggest Loser, Roger. Remember that TV show?
I do.
So they were very successful reality producers. I said, okay, that's the kind of company I trust to do my show.
Makes sense.
I signed with them in less than a year. Bar Rescue premiered on television. That's now 13 years ago, 240 some odd episodes. And I just signed to do a whole bunch more over a long period of time. So it's been a heck of a run. 138 million unique viewers will watch Bar Rescue this year.
Well, it's so interesting. I mean, that's a fascinating story, but it's like reruns. There's like a marathon of Bar Rescue right now. Every time I turn on the TV now, I was watching it this morning. You did a segment with someone called Bamboo Beach Tiki Bar, and that was fascinating.
Yeah.
So it's got legs and it keeps going, and you're still recording new episodes.
We are. I start again in October.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, Roger, when you look at the lives that we live in the industry, when we think about failure as successful restaurateurs, we have no comprehension of the depth of failure that I've experienced in Bar Rescue. I never comprehended that this level of failure could even exist. I mean, people who blow their parents' retirement, they're living in their parents' home at 50 years old, they're losing 20 grand a month, they're borrowing this to lose the money. And it's remarkable to me. And it shows how there's about 8% of our industry that come into this industry with no experience whatsoever.
I see it all the time.
Improper intentions, right? Social purposes, or, just ego, or I've always wanted to do this.
I know. It's like they perceive it as this glamorous business, and it's like, oh, I love having dinner parties at my house, and we get all these recipes, and people say our food is great, and we should start a restaurant. Let's cash in our 401k and let's go for it. And it's like, people have dreams. They're sick of their jobs, and it's like, okay, I think I can do that. But you know what? So many restaurants are running or trying to run restaurants, but they're not running a business. And those are two different things. But it's like, that's the reality. And it pains me so much to see business failure of any kind and how much is on the line and the devastation it causes. And, all for the American dream. And some people make it. And this is one of the most challenging businesses on the planet. I've been in lots of businesses, but this is definitely one of the most challenging.
J.C. Penney once said, if you don't take care of the customers, you'll have no customers. If you don't take care of the business, you'll have no business.
I love it. Yes.
And it's so much the truth. Also, I think, in restaurant, in broad stroke sense, sometimes restaurateurs, all of us are guilty of this. We work in it every day. We don't work on it. And, delineating that time and saying, okay, 2 days a month, 4 hours a week, however you want to delineate that time, but identify the fact that growth comes from working on it, not in it typically. Right? I believe we're one idea away from our next million, $250,000, 10 million, whatever it is, based upon the size of the company. How do we find that idea when we're working in the business transactionally or production-wise every day of the week? We don't find those opportunities. So some of the greatest things and opportunities come to me because I'm not working in it when I get there. All I have to do, Roger, is work on it. So that allows me to go in and affect magic in 4 days. And by the way, I'm only there 4 days, and we do build it in 36 hours. And I've never been there before. I've never met the people.
Yeah, I absolutely want to touch on that. But let's talk on something that you triggered. I mean, running a business versus running a restaurant, working in it, not on it. And so many operators are guilty of this. And yes, there's plenty of successful larger restaurant groups that have their systems dialed, but we're talking a lot of mom and pop independent operators with 1 or 2 locations, and they don't have the systems. They have no financial savvy. It's like they're shooting from the hip. They're tied to their business 7 days a week. It's like they're missing their kids' soccer games and graduations, and they're trapped. They are trapped because the business is running them. And I know you agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think the key here, John, and please, I want to know your thoughts on this, but I hate the word manager or management because that does not imply expertise or competence. It's simply someone's got a title. Maybe they're on a power trip. Maybe they tell people what to do. That's delegation. But leadership is a huge departure from that. And empowerment and recognizing talent in people and being able to nurture and develop that talent gives the owner an exit strategy so that they can come up with the big ideas, because now the staff have their back and the staff are well trained and delivering amazing dining and guest experiences. And they're running the place as if they owned it because they've been incentivized to do so. That's how I ran my business. But on the show, reality show or not, there is a lot of reality behind what you present. And we see a whole lot of failure happening before you step in and kind of give them a slap upside the head and show them the reality, what the reality really is.
You know, it's interesting. You train and teach people like I do, Roger. Understanding the premise of food costs, 30% of every dollar you receive, is pretty simple.
Sure.
Understanding that you have to count your inventory and make sure none of that disappears so you achieve that 30%. Not rocket science, by all means.
A lot of them aren't doing it. They think inventory.
But that's my point. Is it's simplistic. If you look at it in a compartmentalized way, tracking my inventory, piece of cake,
it's
right?
Foundational element.
Understanding my theoretical. There's software programs, and look, in my Taffer's Tavern, we don't even have a traditional stove in Taffer's Tavern. It's all sous vide. Everything is done so we run 60% less labor costs than a traditional restaurant by design. So there are systems and machines and push buttons and all sorts of things today to make an operator more consistent and more efficient. You know, I went to NRA this year.
I was there as well, and I just missed you, I guess. I was there Saturday, Sunday, and you were coming in Monday, I think.
Gotcha.
Every year you go, it is such an eye-opening experience. And now so much of the show is devoted to technology that's literally replacing labor.
That's what I was going to say.
Because of the labor crisis. So tell us your take on that.
So about 5 years ago, there were 5 robotic booths. This year, there were almost 200 robotics booths.
Unreal, isn't it? Yeah.
And, you know, you think we're an industry. We're an industry that produces product in real time. I can't get the people that I need today. And this has been a challenge for a long time. It isn't just current. You know, working with the NRA, we've struggled with human resource and finding employees for 25 years. Sometimes it's worse than others, but it's always been an issue for the National Restaurant Association. 25-year history, they will tell you that we've always fought to fully staff our industry. So, you know, during the Trump administration, employment was very low. It got a little tougher. Now employment is very low. It's tougher. So we think to ourselves, okay, I need to find people. I can't find the people in quantity that I need. Next, the people that I find are often new Americans. They might not have English as their first language.
True.
Not as easy to train as somebody who has English as their first language. So I not only have a quantitative problem, I have a challenge in training and communications and all those types of issues. So the solution is technology, Raj. That's where we're going. Technology is consistent. It does it the same every darn time. You can manage quality in incredible ways, you know. Through sous vide, which is a Michelin 5-star chef approach to cooking, you know, we've been able to provide consistency and quality that we think is really, really unique by eliminating the human factor and relying. So I think this is where our industry is going. I don't think there's any way to stop it. And based on the trends, our human resource problems are going to continue. So this is our only alternative, in my view.
I see it on the cooking side, John, as being a huge benefit. But I guess what most concerns me is if you've got a true passion for hospitality, you never want to lose the guest interaction and touching each guest in a personal way. And you certainly don't want to replace people with technology if it interferes with that magic that happens. Part of the reason why people go out to eat is they feel like this is my place. It's like I'm a regular, I'm a local. And if you're doing your job right, you're treating every new customer walking in the door as if they're an old friend, you know, and you can't replace that magic that happens whether you've got a food truck over the counter or you've got a full service sit down place. And, you know, I'd hate to see a world where I go into a restaurant and a robot serves me and a robot takes my order. And, you know, we're seeing online ordering has become a huge thing due to the pandemic. And you've got self-serve kiosks and you got digital menu boards. And it's like all these things are designed for a reason, clearly. But some of that overlaps into losing that personal touch. And I think that's
I couldn't agree with you more. So I put a lot of technology in the back of the house, none in the front of the house.
Great. Okay, that works.
I don't even like digital menus. I like to hand you a paper menu. I like the interactivity. You know, if you look at the science of menu engineering, you're going to order very different items when you're looking at a whole menu than when you're looking at a section of a menu on a screen. Right. I can't move your eyes. I can't box. I can't shadow. I can't draw attention. I can't manage my sales mix. I can't do any of those things with digital menus. So I'm with you, Roger. I'm all about human connectivity, looking in people's eyes. Brands are what we do, not what we portray. We can portray through technology, but we can never connect through technology like humanity can. I hope we don't lose that. I see too much of it happening now. And it's an easy route for some companies to take, but I think brand equity disappears when they start to put a technology in the front of the house in that regard.
Thank you for that opinion. I totally agree with you there. Yeah. You know, we started to briefly touch on food costs and inventory and those critical financial controls. What are you seeing in terms of menus? Because some people, when they talk menu design, we're talking about, oh, well, your eye naturally gravitates to the top of the right of the menu first, and then it goes to the left bottom corner. In my book, it's like I eliminated all that because I do believe it's absolutely possible and smart to design a menu where the profit spread in each category is pennies and not dollars. And I work with so many clients that have no idea what their profitability on each item is. They're not costing out their menu. They're not keeping up with inflation. They're selling things that are losing them money. And in all likelihood, the most popular items are also the least profitable to sell. And I've worked out this template, you know, where I can plug in all the information. If they can give me recent cost sheets, I've got a template that ranks everything in terms of profits from highest profit item to least profit in each category. And then from a simple product mix or a sales report from a POS, you plug in volume of sales over a date range. Hopefully it's 6 months to a year or even more. And then you press the go button. It shows you you're leaving hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table in lost potential profit because your most popular items that are taking sales away from the highest profit of items are, and there's, you know, what an eye opener that is, you know. And do you see any of that? Do you see people?
Well, we do. I actually wrote a book 34 years ago on menu engineering. And it had a lot of the principles you just said. So we were one of the first companies in the world to do laser tracking and eye movement and understand where the eye lands on a 1-panel, 2-panel, 3-panel menu. The impact of certain adjectives, certain words, the impact of a flag, a chef special. For example, people have a 5.6% propensity to order the bottom 2 items of a list than the top 1 item on the list. Shadowing something can increase sales of that item by 13 to 17% every freaking time. But you don't shadow the whole menu. You shadow 1 item in each category. Boxing something will increase sales of that item 20%, absolutely 100% of the time. So if I know what I can pop 20%, I know what I can pop 14 to 17%, and I know what I can pop by 5 to 6%, the next thing to understand is we don't put percentage points in banks. We put dollars in banks.
Correct.
Profit contribution on a dollar standpoint. And that's how I identify my highest profit contributors in that format. Obviously, the highest dollar profit contributor, that sucker's getting boxed. My second highest dollar profit contributor, that sucker's getting shadowed. My third, fourth, and fifth are going to be the bottom on the lists in each category. So by doing that, and I can tell you because we've worked with huge chains over the years, even Pizza Hut in Dubai, the exact same principles. In Jerusalem, the same principles held true. In Bangkok, the same principles held true with regard to movement and boxing and shadowing. We would raise menu profitability by 12 to 18% every single time. The next thing we would do is we would attack psychological pricing. Anything on a menu that's not priced at 95 cents, taking a burger and dropping in at $8.45 is lunacy. There's no psychological difference in pricing if you bring that item to $8.95. So price your things at 95 cents. When it's time to, because of food costs, like right now we're getting pushed. Am I going to go from $8.95 to $9.25? No, I'm going to $9.95. I'm not stopping in the middle. It's leaving money on the table. So understanding psychological profit and positioning, understanding the engineering of a menu completely, understanding your profit contributions in dollars. These are the things that'll drive another, 25 to 30%. And if I can add one more thing.
Please.
When we looked at revenue generation, we always said to ourselves, okay, we got 3 things. We got new customer programs, we got frequency programs, we got spend. That's all we got. So how do we target all 3 of these things all the time? And then I bought the Neighborhood Marketing Institute. And we got into the premise of neighborhood marketing. And we started realizing that, wow, if I do radio spots or TV spots or billboards or any traditional advertising means, I got to spend all this money and hope that they come. What if I said no? So I'm opening my restaurant in Arlington Ballpark in Dallas. And I say to myself, okay, I'm going to give away 200 rib dinners. And my research shows that if an individual comes to a restaurant for the first time and has a fantastic experience, the statistical likelihood of them returning for a second visit is about 30%. If they come to that restaurant for a second visit and have a second flawless experience, the likelihood of a third visit is about 42%.
Yeah.
If they come for a third time, the likelihood of a fourth visit is 72%. So don't market to one visit, don't market to two visits, market to 3 visits. So I'll give away a free rib dinner. You get a postcard from me, Raj, says, come to Jon's restaurant, get a free rib dinner. You look, there's no restrictions. Doesn't say you got to be with somebody buying dinner. Doesn't say you can't come Friday night. None of that stuff.
Not get a tour timeshare.
Right. So you come in, you drop your card on the table, you get a whole rib dinner, corn on a cob, ribs, everything. If you want a glass of water, you're not going to get a check. But when you come into the restaurant, my hostess is going to ask you, have you been here before? You say no. When she seats you, she's going to put a red cocktail napkin in front of you. Everybody else has white cocktail napkins. You got a red cocktail napkin. Every person in that restaurant now is your first-time customer. You'll come in, you'll order your rib dinner. The manager will come over in the later part of the meal and say, how was your rib dinner? You say, oh, it was fantastic. I loved it. Awesome. You got to try the chicken. I pull out my business card. I write on the back, $5 off chicken. I sign it. Come back. My name's Jon. I'm the manager. Come back and have the chicken. I just primed visit 2, all because of the red napkin. Now you come back for visit 2. You drop my business card on. Oh, Jon, the manager sent me in for chicken. Blah, blah, blah. I order the barbecue chicken. I get $5 off. At the end of the meal, I come back to that table because they tell me, you got a card on table 44. Come back. How is it? Oh, delicious. Next time, you got to try my cheesecake. Give you the card piece of cheesecake. Now, the rib dinner cost me $4.65. The $5 off chicken I broke even on, I don't even see that as a cost. Cost me about $1.40. So when I put it all together, my cost is $6 per guest, but I only pay when you come. I don't spend a dime if you don't come.
Absolutely.
I packed restaurants that way. I've also learned that people get addicted to discounts. They never get addicted to free.
That's the way we market when you discount.
Yeah, that's the way we market. And then what we do is we task management to increase guest counts by 1% a week for 10 consecutive weeks, twice a year, in concerted programs. So if you have 1,000 guests a week, you only have to increase it by 2% a week. That's only 20 guests. So go ahead, put a program together, call your mother if you have to, but you're giving me my 20 guests this week, and you're giving me my 20 guests next week. I want 1% for 10 consecutive weeks. At the same time, we work on check, and we build check by 10 to 20%. These are the ways we surgically attack revenues and profitability. And you're right, Roger, it's the difference between running a decent business and going to the promised land.
You know, that was brilliant marketing. I want to throw something at you that I did for years until I didn't need to do it again. But whenever I opened a new restaurant, I always had cash cows, you know, that cost me virtually nothing to give away. They were super profitable on the menu because the value was there, clearly the perceived value. It was a nice presentation, the sights, the sounds, the smells, all that kind of stuff. I printed up these 4-color business cards and I went around to non-competing businesses in like a 5-mile radius, like retail stores and a movie theater and bed and breakfast inns, introduced myself to the owner and manager and said, hey, I'm opening a new restaurant. I'd really like to give your guests a free whatever it was, the cash cow, just to give, you know, to introduce them to my place. If you send me that business, if you stamp the back of that business card with your identification, I'll give you 10% in back before tax in trade at the restaurant. Some of these businesses sent me $10,000 and $15,000 in new business over the course of months. But then I wanted to get them back again. You talked about touching every guest in a personal way, the red napkin, everybody gave them first-class treatment. I wanted to get you back, so we delivered a good experience, clearly, but then lottery fever, right? When was the last time you were at a convenience store or a supermarket when someone in front of you wasn't buying a lottery ticket, right? There was billion-dollar lotteries. I came up with this idea of branding a lottery ticket that looked like a lottery ticket, and it was a scratch off, but it had our logo on it and our name and all that kind of stuff. And we put that in the check presenter after that first visit from that guest, and we said, hey, we hope you win something. Well, every ticket was a winner, and they'd immediately pull out the quarter and scratch it off after they paid the check, and it brought them back in again. And they would win another cash cow, which cost me virtually nothing. The check average for a two-top was about 75 or 80 bucks back then. And I thought, okay, after these 2 visits, I think I got you for life. And that filled my seats when I was opening a new place. And then we didn't need to do it again until we opened another restaurant. So similar ideas, but
something called the Express Lotto Lunch.
Let me hear about that.
I would go to the state lottery. I'd buy real instant win lottery tickets. I'd buy dollar tickets for 80 cents because I was giving them away, not selling them. I would create a special lunch express menu, 8 or 10 items delivered in 15 minutes with a lottery ticket. The 80-cent cost of the lottery ticket was engineered into the cost of the item, so it was completely sustainable. It wasn't a one-time deal. They would come into the restaurant, they would order their Lotto Lunch Express item, and they would scratch those tickets, and it would be, let's say, 6 secretaries from upstairs or 4 executives from upstairs. They're all scratching the tickets together. They're laughing. One guy wins $6. What's that? It becomes like a massive thing. It was one of the most successful programs I've ever had, is by attaching a lottery program for lunch. So, things like that are very powerful. We also used to send envelopes out to our key mailing list and say, in this envelope is a coupon from $5 to $50 and anywhere in between, but only your hostess can open it in a restaurant.
Oh,
so people would come in with the secret envelope.
Yeah, the sealed envelope.
And they would come in, I got a secret envelope. Okay, so we'd sit you down, and when you sit down at the table, you'd open the envelope and you'd see what was in it. And they weren't all $5. We would have some fun with it. We would give away some 50s and such. But, these programs are really powerful. I remember years ago we worked with the Palms, and we wanted to give away a free lobster on people's birthdays. And they said, we're the Palms. We can't do something like that. So we put together a really cool invitation. In the invitation was a pocket that a lobster bib went in, and it said, on your birthday, please present this card, blah, 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 and have a free lobster for your birthday. Well, people don't come alone to have a lobster. You bring your buddies with you. Always. You're going to have some wine. You're going to have some drinks. It's a birthday party. It was a hugely successful program, and that's giving away a high item like a lobster. So, marketing is understanding that marketing must provide value to the guest. It doesn't mean absolute value. It could be perceived value. It could be experiential value. So being creative in the way we position things like your lottery tickets or my lunch lotto program or the red napkins programs, these are the things that build loyalty, and it's full circle. None of those things would happen, Roger, if technology was between us and our customers.
But
it's almost it's the human connection of those programs that makes them work.
But it also goes back to what you said before about the working on your business. This is working on your business. If you're in the trenches 7 days a week, like just trying to get the food out, it's like you're not thinking of these ideas that are going to drive exponential business and save your business and really, give you an advantage over the competition. That's why you need your staff to run the place as if you, owned it, as if they owned it. So thank you for sharing. I mean, this was like a mini marketing lesson, and I'm sure the audience is rapidly taking notes. I got to try that. It'll work in my place. So thanks for sharing. Those are great ideas. Sure. Let's walk through Bar Rescue. Let's say you're walking into a new place and getting the lay of the land. Are you prepped in advance? What do you do first? Do you triage stuff bombarding you the minute you see stuff because you've got a trained eye and your foundation and your experience is exemplary? I can't imagine all the things you've done and everything you've learned along the way, and you've shared a lot of that. But what happens when you walk through the door? What do you notice?
Well, I'm there for 4 days. What I'm going to tell you is absolute truth on my mother's grave.
Okay.
There's no scripts, there's no actors, none of that. So here's what happens. I show up at about 5:30 at night on the first day. They put me in a makeup chair. I have 2 producers that come in that have been there for days shooting footage before I got there. They give me a briefing. The bar is owned by Roger and Corey. Roger and Corey are partners, are ready to kill each other. Roger's already lost his house. Corey's about to lose his house. They have enough money to make it 3 more months, John. That's all I know. I don't want to know anymore. I like to learn at the same time the audience does. That's the success of Bar Rescue. I'm not ahead of you. You're with me when I go through this. So now I'm going to go in for recon. I don't really know much of anything, what's going to happen when I go in. I don't know who the people are. I don't see casting reels on purpose. I provide standards. These are what I want. I want employees. I want a manager. I want a kitchen. But I don't see casting reels. I don't know the names of the bars till I get there. I am really completely ignorant. So I walk in for recon ignorant, except knowing the partners and the debts and the financial scenario. Your wife's ready to kill you. You don't have money to send your kids to college. I mean, that's the kind of background stuff I get. I walk in, I see what I see. I react, could be nicely, if I think you're a good person who's trying and failing because, not due to attitude, etc. If you're a jerk who's, screwing your wife and children because of your own laziness, I'm going to go at you that way. And I don't know what I see. So I go in, I do recon. At the end of recon, whatever happens when I walk out, the cameras stop. We put all the ownership and employees in vans in the parking lot, and I go in and design the bar that night. So now it's about 11 o'clock at night. Cameras have stopped. I'm handed a demographic report that I've designed that gives me some demographics and psychographics of the market area. I'm given another document that gives me competitive information, so I understand there's 5 sports bars, there's 10 of this, there's 10 of that, so I can sort of match the concepts and the market demographics. I then have to look at the space and come up with a design that moment. So I look at the horizontals, I look at the verticals, I look at the floor plan, I try to come up with a concept there. So we come up with an initial physical design. I have 57 in my crew. 8 of them are in my construction department. So they'll set up a tent. We can do millwork, all sorts of carpentry work in our tent. So at the end of that night, my team has our general marching orders. We're going to build this. It's going to look that way. We're going to target this. This will be our key areas. This is what we're doing behind the bar. This is what we're doing out front. So we have a general list. We go home. The next day on TV is day 2. You see training and stress test. What you don't see is I'm finishing the design with my team off camera. I got to find bar stools, wallpapers, flooring, ceilings, technology, lighting systems, sound systems, video systems,
Find
stations.
all that locally, or it's like
here's
you've
the
got
problem.
resources clearly, but I
have to get it all. I have to get it all within 24 hours.
Yeah, like that.
So you'll see if you look carefully, Roger, you'll smile when I'll tell you this. Often the chairs and bar stools don't match because I can't get 60 of the same kind. I can get 10 of these, 20 of these, 30 of those, because it's all moving so quickly. So the design gets adapted in real time to what I can truly get.
Okay.
So now I can't get this stool. So now that finish doesn't work. So I got to change this finish to accommodate the stool I can get. So by the end of day 2, at the end of stress test, the logo's to the sign maker. The branding and logo is done. The recipes are done. The food orders are in the Cisco's. The drinks are done. The food orders are in. The beverage orders are in. The uniform orders are in. And my team goes in at about midnight on stress test night and starts construction. We build the day before, we build some of the shelving and back bar things off-site in our tent so we can carry a lot of that in rather than build it on site. That does give us a few hours head start. Day 3, now I train off-site at another location. Day 4, those same vans pull up at about 4 in the afternoon with the employees and owners. They're blindfolded. The bar is finished. I show up at about 3 o'clock on the 4th day.
Yeah.
I'll do a walkthrough with my team. I might not like something. I want to change this. I want to shift that. Let's do this. I want to try. Let's design this plate different. There's tweaking that we'll do that afternoon of day 4. They come out blindfolded. I show them the bar, hang for an hour or 2. We leave. My crew loads out about 8 hours, 2 days off, and then we do it again.
This is unbelievable. Like, you just covered 1,000 details in a business of 1,000 details, but let's talk about the people portion, because a lot of the people we see on TV.
Can I add one thing? Really astute thing.
All right.
I come up with a concept, an interior design, a menu, recipes, plates, presentations, and train people in 4 days.
That's unbelievable.
What the hell takes our industry so long?
I know, right?
Why does it take us months to roll out menus? Why does it take us weeks of meetings and discussions to do training? I mean, time is money. If there's anything that I've learned from Bar Rescue, Roger, it's that whatever we do in our industry, we can still do it smart and do it a lot faster.
Unbelievable. This is like such an eye-opener to hear what goes into this in less than a week, and a total transformation in most cases, redesign, rebranding, everything. Well, clearly you've got now a design aesthetic, right? And a key knack for looking at the demographics and figuring out a new concept that's going to work, creating a buzz around it. And then there's a line at the door all the time. But let's go back to the people piece, because in a lot of cases, the people are that bar's worst enemy, and not everyone deserves to stay. And some people can be reset. I call it pushing the reset button. And then clearly, they're on TV. Not everyone can be comfortable behind the camera and not flub their lines and be natural as if there's not a camera watching them. How does all that come together?
Well, the cameras come in about a day and a half before I get there. So believe it or not, the cameras start to disappear. If I keep them busy enough and engaged, my production crew does not interact with them at all. Only I do.
All right.
So they never think they're working for production. They always think they're working for me. So I got to keep it real. I can't follow the cameras, Roger. The cameras have to follow me, if you know what I'm saying.
I do.
So we call it shadow production. My team is in the background. All the employees have is a relationship with me. So they react to me. I keep them focused. I keep them busy. The cameras disappear. You can tell, because look at the fools people make of themselves. Obviously, if they were thinking the camera was there, they wouldn't have done it. So they're in the moment, and those cameras disappear when you're in that moment. The biggest problem that I have, and I'm sure you experience the same thing, is fixing businesses is easy. Fixing people is really, really hard. And you have to understand what is the blockage that's blocking this person from success. And is it the ego? They're too big to sweep their own floor. They're too important to have to sit down in an office and do numbers or train employees. Or is it pride that they're failing and they don't have the pride to change course or to challenge their own decisions? Is it fear? They've lost $400,000 of their parents' retirement, but if they close tomorrow, they failed. As long as they're open, they haven't yet failed.
There's a glimmer of hope still.
That's right. So the fear of failure causes them to stay open and lose more and more and more. So what are these things, and how do you crack through to these people? You see me embarrass them in front of their spouses.
Yes.
You see me embarrass them in front of their children. But, I find that people are in this shell, and they're not going to step out of this shell of failure. I got to somehow make them doubt themselves enough about even one thing that shell opens just a crack. And in that crack, I can walk in. It begins with convincing them that they're wrong. I wrote the book, Don't BS Yourself, Cut the Excuses That Are Holding You Back, after my 120th episode of Bar Rescue. I was in Detroit, Michigan.
Please share.
And the bar is failing. A woman owns this bar, a nice woman. I look at her. Every episode, I always ask the owner, why are you failing? And it doesn't always make the final cut, but I always ask that question. Mm-hmm. And she looked at me and said, John, I'm failing because of the euro in Greece. I go back to my hotel room and I think to myself, 120 episodes, Roger, not once did anybody say, John, I'm failing because of me. Not one time. They always blame the competition, the weather, construction, the president, Congress, taxes, the economy, recession, pandemic. Never did they blame themselves. Yes. And then I realized, okay, so she has an excuse, the euro in Greece. Yeah. So she's going to wake up in the morning and she's going to look in the mirror and she's going to blame the euro in Greece for her problems. But what if she woke up that next morning, looked in the mirror, and truly blamed herself? Then she would change, because she wouldn't like that. But as long as she blames the euro in Greece, she doesn't change. So I realized, son of a gun, Roger, I found a common denominator of failure. It's an excuse. You see, if we have an excuse, we didn't do something we should have. We did do something we shouldn't have. We fell short on something. We failed in some way. I come up with an excuse. I sleep like a frickin' baby. And now, because I'm sleeping like a baby and I blame the excuse, I have no reason to change, no reason to grow, no reason to adapt. So excuses, I believe, are the common denominator of failure. They cause inaction. They paralyze us. They prevent growth. And that experience had me write that New York Times bestseller, Don't BS Yourself. Really powerful. So I say to people, whatever your situation is, it's on you. Look in the mirror, own it.
There's a certain amount of drama that goes with TV that gets ratings, and that's certainly a part of what you do. But there's also, there's a compassionate side of Jon Taffer, and then there's an aggressive side of Jon that goes in and really gets attention to people. And I've seen liquor bottles smashed on the floor and yelling at people because there's mold in the ice machine and all that kind of stuff, which makes for great TV, but it really scares the hell out of people, doesn't it? And it really is an eye-opener, like, oh my God. And it's like, they'll follow you to the ends of the earth after that, won't they?
Yeah, they do. What's amazing, Rogers? At the end of the episode, I get that hug.
That's
right.
And
there's only one episode that I didn't get a hug in. But you don't hear what they say to me because the microphones are on our chests. So when we hug, we cover the microphones. The things they say to me, Roger, are unbelievable. John, you saved my life. John, you saved my marriage. I'm talking to my kids again. I have hope again. Thank you. And I find the ones that fought me the most, that I got the loudest with, give me the tightest hug.
Wow. How gratifying is that for you? Because We talked earlier about how rampant failure is in our business and the odds of success and why people get into this for the wrong reasons. But somehow you give people that don't have a clue about what they're doing, not only do you give them hope, but you give them the tools to change the business and change their life and their approach to how they run things. So when you walk
what a
away,
blessing.
Yeah,
what a
I can't imagine
to be able to do that every week.
Yeah, that's unreal.
So
Again,
I said to my wife a way ago, and I've said this before, at the end of the show, two things happen. I get a hug and I get a check. A hug sort of means more than a check these days. Very inspiring. So when you get that hug, you fight harder next time. I show up in this guy's place. He's got enough money to make it 2 more weeks. He's in debt $300,000-$400,000. He's broken, man. His wife has lost faith in him. His kids, you just know, his life is unraveling. He's losing everything. He's got enough money for 2 more weeks. I'm his last chance, Roger.
The life preserver, right? The Hail Mary.
If I don't do everything I can to fight for this guy, whatever I have to do to help him, I have to do. And if I don't, how dare me?
Unbelievable. So do your producers find the candidates of the bars that you serve, or do you have a part in that?
Well, you can go to jontaffer.com. There's a way to apply there. You can also apply at the Paramount site. But we have professional casting company that looks at all of these applications. They go around the country. They look at the bars. You know, we do look at financials. I'm not going to have somebody lie to me and say they're losing money to get a free remodel.
Yeah, of course.
I want real stories of real people, real stakes. Yeah, I want something on the line, Raj. You know, I want your house, your family on the line. I want this to mean something to you. And so those companies take care of all that for me. I don't like, as I mentioned earlier, I don't like any connection to that part of it. That's what keeps it real for me.
So everyone in this industry should know that the bar is a hugely profitable part of the business, but it's also a potential for loss and theft and unscrupulous practices and bartenders that can pull fast ones all day. You know, I'll serve you a drink and I won't ring this in and I'll charge you and I'll stick the money. I mean, that's basic stuff, but there are so many things that I'm sure you've seen. Do you still see a lot of that in the bars that you go in? And is it possible to turn all that around? Do you have to fire people that you catch stealing, or you have an inclination that this is what's going on and you're losing all your profits to your people? Like, what do you see there?
You know it when it's happening. I mean, I even can see the pennies and the matches moved around behind the bar when they're counting what they've stolen and what the register owes them and all of that.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm pretty quick to bust that. But attentiveness solves that problem. And if these were attentive owners, I probably wouldn't be there in the first place, Roger. So in their case, almost every case, there is theft or significant leakage, if you will,
of course,
past what would be reasonable. That's the sad stuff, is the employees will say to me, I love him. He's good to me. He's a great owner. He's like family to me. He's like a father to me. And then they go out and steal from the guy.
What's in it for me? You know, and I'm not paid enough to care. And I see an opportunity, I'm going to take it. And that's my ticket forward. I know it. And substance abuse is rampant in our business too. Sad to say, but true. And alcoholism runs rampant. And even amongst owners, it's like you're buying everybody a drink and you're having a drink at the bar and they're buying you drinks. And next thing you know, you're constantly separate myself from that. I was friendly to all my regulars, obviously, but I never accepted drinks and I never drank while I was working on my business, you might say. But
yeah, I always felt that I had to be sober. God forbid would something happen. There needs to be somebody who's sober in this room who can take care. God, if somebody slips and falls, somebody has a heart attack, something happens. So I always looked at it as a serious responsibility. So I never drank at work. You know, many years ago, I owned a bunch of steakhouses, and I went to my general manager's house for dinner.
You've been
and I opened this kitchen cabinet, and the cabinet was decorated in early Alamo grill. In other words, all my china, my silver. This is one of my best general managers. So now I see my stuff in his house. What am I going to do now? So I've never gone to an employee's house ever since then.
Efficiencies, because a lot of what you
By the
do
way,
is
I'm tough on time.
Efficiency is so important to profitability and speed of service and all those kinds of things. Like, how do you make things happen so that the flair is there, the showmanship is there, the quality of the drink, the presentation, and all those things? And then, you know, you got to move it out fast because the time clock is running and you got to make money.
Well, we're not one for doing too many shortcuts in presentation, but, you know, we do sous vide cooking, which our longest ticket time in taverns about 6 minutes. So that's for steaks. We do very well with our sous vide. Our bartenders are all fresh ingredients. It's all handmade, but we have very high standards that we manage in that regard. You know, we've learned that presentation is everything. And you know, we're creating I don't believe we're in a restaurant business, Roger. I believe we're in a business of reactions. I don't believe the cook in the kitchen is cooking an entree. He's cooking a reaction. He's achieving it through the entree. No restaurateur should think that his food or his beverage is in fact his product. It is not. The reaction is the product. The food and beverage is strictly the vehicle to the reaction. If the food hits the table, so I'll redesign that plate 100 times until somebody sits up and reacts to it. How do you make somebody react to a bottle of Budweiser that every bar in America has? So, that comes down to human dynamics. But I say this as a final point in this regard. When I owned the only patent ever issued for music management in hospitality properties, when we were involved in Rainforest Cafe and such, we could increase table turn time by 20% through beats per minute design of music. I could make you chew faster. I could make you eat faster. I could turn the table faster. Take a Denny's. The light's high, waiter walks fast. Go to a Morton's. Lights are low, waiter walks slow. If that waiter walks faster in the Morton's, that steak isn't worth $80 anymore. If the lights come down, it directly affects pace, perceived value. So when we design concepts, pace and table turns are a large part of design, not only traditional sequencing and those kinds of things. What is the beats per minute strategy to drive energy level? What is the pace of servers? What are our mechanical dynamics? What are our interactive dynamics? What are our personal dynamics? How we present ourselves, our pace, and every aspect to generate the appropriate higher energy or lower energy for higher prices. But make no mistake, the slower and lower, the higher the prices. The higher and faster, the lower the prices. So these are delicate adjustments to concepts that drive perceived value hugely. And they're not isolated. They all have to come together and mesh. That beats per minute strategy has to connect to the uniform. That uniform has to connect to the environment, to the employee's energy level and connectivity. All of these things have to connect at such deep levels. These connectivity points, the common threads as I call them, that connect all of these elements into something cohesive are what defines a restaurant and give you that feeling in your gut. It's intangible. But when these pieces come together, the reaction is powerful. So we're not in a restaurant business. We're not in the food business. We don't market. We create reactions. We achieve it through marketing. We don't serve people. We create reactions. We achieve it through service. I don't do promotions. I create reactions. I achieve it through promotions. I don't play music. I play reactions. I achieve it through music. That's the business we're in. And make no mistake, this is a great close, Roger. Ready? Make no mistake, he or she who creates the best reactions.
Beautiful. Amen to that, Jon. You've offered so much knowledge and expertise and insights to our audience, and you continue to do amazing things for this industry. So thank you for being a part of hospitality and for being on the Restaurant Rockstars podcast. Thanks so much.
My pleasure, Roger. I enjoyed it.